Vineeta, thank you so much for the kind words on the book, but also for making the time for this conversation.
Thank you for writing this book, enabling so many of us who just get lost in the rigmarole to get back to thinking about how to lead a full life. I really enjoyed reading it, and it was one of those books that I finished actually reading on a single weekend.
Wow.
So yeah, thanks, because I think it's an easy read with lots of stories, and that's what makes it. Plus, there is depth, but it doesn't hit you when the depth is coming.
Right.
It's just blended in with a lot of stories.
Thank you.
I thought that was pretty good.
Thank you. And people often send these one line, I like the book kind of responses, but I really liked the thoughtfulness of your email. You spoke about a couple of things, right? One is you said the pieces around self-awareness spoke to you, but I think there's also a section where I talk about how sometimes seeing the finish line can give you clarity. Yeah. I spoke about my dad. I spoke about Amit Bodia, whom you mentioned, as well. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about what spoke to you from the book?
Yeah, sure. So I think that was one of the most poignant parts of the book. When I read the book, the story of your dad and how you spent those last few months with him, and the things that he spoke about in terms of both in terms of regrets and things that he wanted to do and things that he valued. I think a lot of times we assume that we have forever, but life is short. And Amit Bodia's stories was a very hard reminder, and he is especially somebody I really looked up to, because he had actually recruited me for Deutsche Bank when I was in campus. So I spent, and he was the person I had to say no to when I decided to not take up that job offer and build my own company at graduating from IIM Ahmedabad. But he was a superstar and has always been one. And the reflections that he had through the notes that he shared with his colleagues, I think that made me realize that even if I practice some amount of self-awareness, I do many times get lost in chasing external metrics and forget about what really matters to me. And life is too short to do that. And it's really important to keep figuring out what our internal compass is. I think that was the term that you'd used in the book, rather than getting just running after external validation and performance metrics that we're all chasing. And otherwise, when we look back at our lives, there will be those regrets of unlived potential. And that's the one thing that, at the end of the life, what matters will be the people who are around us and the things we did for ourselves and the courage that we had to lead a full life, as you call it. And I felt that while it's something that I have read about in many forms, the way it all came together in this book was really, for me, I mean, I did not feel like I had this middle-age inflection point, like you've mentioned for a lot of people. But it was for me like another reality check, saying that, are you living the life that you were born to lead? And what are the corrections that you need to do right now so that you don't have regret when you reach your deathbed, which could be any time.
Very true, Vineeta. And I think as we were discussing just before we started filming this, and it's not a static answer, right? I think our context keeps evolving. We keep evolving. Yeah. So I think it's sort of, how do we really keep refreshing our awareness as we go through the journey? Just picking up on the point about full potential, I see you as somebody who really sets a very high bar for leading a full life. You run Sugar along with Kaushik. You're a mom of 2 young children. You run full marathons. You make time for Shark Tank, and I'm sure you do many more things. But what's been your approach to sort of, if I may say, architecting your life?
Yeah. So I think a lot of it comes from my journey as a marathoner, and you run. So I think you'd be able to connect with that. Every part of...
Not the kind of distances you do, but yeah, a little bit.
I mean, daily distances are probably similar, like 5-7 kilometers. I realized that I want to build an enduring business, an enduring brand. And a lot of the approaches that I've had in the choices around career, managing my time, energy, has been about endurance. And I feel that a lot of times we get swayed in the flow and we forget about what really matters to us in the long run. And like there are, I always think back at my long races. So I'll give you an example. I did this race called the Comrades Ultra Marathon, which is like an 89-kilometer run. And there were 3-4 things that I, remember from the training and that run. One is that, like as a runner, the most important part is that you have to pace yourself. And a lot of us in our 20s, 30s, we go all out and then we get burnt out. And then we start thinking that what really matters to me in life, and then we have to rebuild from scratch. But if you realize that your career is also an endurance sport where you're building something for 40, 50, 60 years, then you'll remember to not get swayed by that it's all or nothing year for me. And you'll manage your energy better in a way that you're able to pace yourself.
Yep.
So you mentioned my children. My children are actually 10 and 7. 10 is actually the age of sugar as well. And you can imagine as a young founder, the dilemma of deciding to raise a family at the same time that you're pivoting from something into a business which is raising investor capital. That was a very tough decision. And the only reason I was able to make that call was because I saw the business and my career as an endurance sport, saying that what will it take for me to enjoy doing this over decades rather than thinking that it's do or die this year, next year. And that is I think that allowed me to pace myself. And second, it allowed me to, as a runner, you have to have water before you're too thirsty. And I feel that whole act of refueling yourself and having whatever it takes, right? Like time for yourself or a vacation with the family or just those meaningful conversations with certain colleagues where it's just not about work. All of these are things that we push away thinking that it's like, this is the most important month for me, most important quarter for me, most important year for me. But by the time then you take that sip, if it's too late, you've already gone past that stage where that hydration will work. And for me, that learning that I have to take these refueling opportunities before I feel thirsty made all the difference. And I think third is we talk a lot about time management and energy management, and we're all trying to work our lives around doing this better. I feel that there is also this part about managing our emotions, managing failures. And as a runner, I realized that there are these moments in the race, where you are in the 20, 25 kilometer, when things are going really good, you're thinking about the finish line. You're like, hey, that's the finish line. I'm going to be, what am I going to be? How I will lie down, whether I will cry, who I will call, those moments, right? And that visualization helps. It's like when you're building a business, you're selling the dream to a lot of people. You want to build that vision of the 10,000 crore company, employing thousands of people, becoming a global brand, and that fuels you. But then there are those moments like the 50 kilometer, 55 kilometer, 60 kilometer. That's the grind, right? And in those moments, the idea that you have another 30 kilometers is scary, it's overwhelming. And at that time, you don't think about the finish line. At that time, you just think about, can I get to the next pole? There's another light pole, can I get to the next light pole? So you're just moving light pole to light pole, saying that, what can I do to keep myself motivated and positive? Can I think about, these happy customers, creating these products next quarter, next month? And I feel that a lot of time I also invest in thinking about managing my emotions, which is when to have the big picture and when to just enjoy the moment and the people you're around with, and just think about the next day and just show up. And somehow decades fly by very quickly, but if you figured out a way to show up fully and enjoying what you do and being proud of what you do, then it all adds up. And while you don't every day feel like, oh, hey, I'm creating something big and I'm creating something of value, you end up looking back and realizing that just because you showed up and did not give up through the journey, you managed to build something. So I think for me, it is like a combination of these 2-3 things: pacing myself, not taking like what I'm doing too seriously, and knowing when to think about the big picture versus small picture and not stressing myself out. And thirdly, refueling myself from time to time. That's
very, very beautifully articulated. Very well said, Vineeta. I think if I may just build on what you just said, I think leadership is as much about who you are being, not just what you're doing.
Yep.
So in a way, I like the term showing up,
Yep.
and showing up authentically, showing up as a full human being, not just as one sliver. Very often, I see people bring one facet of who they are to the work or to the business. But I think the more holistic we can be, I think A, it's more fulfilling, and B, I think you build a more enduring culture. So very inspiring. I think the one of the quotes that stayed with me was, I think it comes from I'm forgetting the name of this lady who was the CEO of Facebook till Sheryl Sandberg.
Yeah.
And I think she said, you can't have it all. Is sort of incomplete. You can't have it all at the same time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to, prioritize. Given there are 24 hours in a day, where do you feel the tension? Because I think leading a full life, I feel, is also about being intentional in terms of the trade-offs we make, what we say no to. So make it real for us. Where do you feel the stretch? What do you say no to? What are the things you wish you could do if you had the time?
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest journey has been learning to say no to guilt. It is everything from the mother's guilt, where sometimes you just keep like such a high bar for yourselves that you always feel that you're inadequate. And the other is the guilt of being there for other people. So if I spent a few months of my life not saying no enough, and I realized that I would look back at 6 months and I was only burning myself out and doing a lot of things that weren't needle moving as far as my life was concerned or my career was concerned. And that's how it happens. You get sucked into it. I mean, I remember in the book you've mentioned the whole story of Deep Kalra also figuring out how to make the right trade-offs and move himself back from certain everyday activities that helped his organization thrive. I think in my case, it's been a lot of external demands from a lot of people, which is actually noise, because nobody else is ever going to tell me what I really need to do to make this business enduring for the next 10 years. And to prioritize that over all the noise involved saying no multiple times a day. And I went through this journey of, first trying to delegate it to my EA, saying that, I'll connect you with my EA, and then having her say no, to then having the courage to write no with a 10-line explanation, to finally just being able to say no with a single sentence. And it just sounds very easy to a lot of people, but for me, that was a journey. But rather than, I look at every opportunity that comes my way as saying that, rather than scheduling it for the future, I think about it, if I had to do it today, would I say yes to it or would I say no to it? And if the answer is no, then even for 6 months later, the answer is going to be no, because it is important to prioritize what's important rather than, what seems like
just brush it under the carpet.
Yeah.
Got it.
And the other is, of course, I think as women, there is a lot of burden that we carry of responsibilities, from just, making sure everybody's gifts on various occasions are in place, to keeping the house in order, to obviously all the entire responsibility around children, as well as the domestic work, and even including working women. 6:1 is what the ratio of the unpaid labor of women is to men actually is.
So? Okay.
Even for educated working women, and it doesn't change. So you would think that the ratio is different if you're unemployed versus you're employed, but it's actually very similar. And I read about all of this, and I decided to also have conversations with all the people in my life, saying that I need help, I'm imperfect, and I said no to perfection. And I feel that just and it's not a static situation where I've turned into this person who's got control of her life. It's actually an everyday battle. But every day I'm reminding myself that I set out to create these moments of joy with my children and not stress about the small things and build a great business. And at the end of the day, I think about it saying that, how much time did I spend doing things that really mattered or creating these moments that I'm going to remember with my children, rather than just running around frantically chasing God knows what. It's not that easy, but I think running helps there. Every morning when I'm running, I just, think about like, oh, yesterday I should not have been part of that meeting. I should not have, agreed to commit my time to that. I was impatient with my little one because I forgot to do that one ritual I have, which is before I get into the house, I just take a moment and try to cut off the stress from work and just go in and try to be there and keep my phone away. I did not keep my phone away. So I try to review what I did the previous day, and then I still falter. So it's a journey.
It's about being kind to yourself, right? It's not beating yourself up, but to sort of stay with it and keep evolving. So it's wonderful that you're taking the time, and in a way running provides you the platform. Running without a device.
It provides that pause, as you mentioned in your book.
Right.
But yeah, I still feel that this is one of those places that I have a long way to go.
Wow.
I'm still using the fact that I'm a high energy person to be wired all the time, but I could probably cut out more things if I had the courage to say no even more than I have at the moment. Yeah.
So the paradox of self-awareness, which I discuss in the book, is actually the most self-aware people often say that I have a long way to go. So the fact that you're a long way to go means that you're already on that curve of self-awareness. So I think in your case also, you and Kaushik do it together, right? You're married and you're sort of co-founders at Sugar. Any headline thoughts on just maybe the unique elements of being a couple founder?
Yeah.
And the role he's played in sort of ensuring that 6:1 is a little more meaningful or reasonable.
I don't think it has to do with being couple founders. I think that, irrespective of like what roles that you do and how much time you spend together, 6:1 is the reality because of our inherent biases and social conditioning when we were growing up. Luckily, in case of Kaushik, he comes from a place where there was already the ratio was better than 6:1 because of the fact that he had a working mother, and I feel that made all the difference. So we are actually probably significantly better than the averages because of the fact that there is that conditioning wasn't as much, and we've had, I think, a lot of times couples struggle to have those tough conversations. The day we started the company, we had a very tough conversation where we wrote down what is going to be whose discretion and decision, and then we try very hard to not cross lines there because that keeps us sane. Similarly, in terms of the work at home, every now and then I bring up the conversation around this is where I need help and this is where you will, and it comes with the idea that it's okay, everything will not be perfect. I think perfection is the enemy of like just happiness many times, especially when it comes to things like you can never have a perfect house, you can never have a perfect parenting, you can never be perfect at a lot of things, but it's fine. I mean, so I think those tough conversations, making time for those has enabled us to work better. But we did, I think first 2-3 years of our partnership, we spent a lot of time, taking work fights home and taking home fights to work. And like everything else, this is also a journey of learning to let go, learning to keep your ego at bay, learning to not remind the other person, I told you so, when something goes wrong. The disagreeing and committing. So I think, but I think it's one of the most beautiful partnerships, just getting to build with your partner.
Lovely. And I think building on what you said, perfection also gives you a false sense of control over life, which is essentially uncontrollable, given the number of random things that are going on. So just the more we come to terms with it and make peace with it. And the title of the book is Play to Potential, Vineeta. What does the term mean to you?
I think I love the mention of a full life, which you call a flavorful life.
Yes.
Considering all the aspects of going after your aspirations, living for things that you love, having a family that you feel strongly about, and caring about the relationships. So I feel that to to me, it just means that when I look back at my life from my deathbed, I will know that it was flavorful, it was a full life, and I lived it at my terms rather than being constantly driven by societal judgments, because I'm never going to be good enough for that. So as long as in my own barometer, I have really gone after the things that I was born to do, you know, things that made me thrive, the things that made me feel happy or in the flow. I think that would be a life well lived. And I think, you know, the whole idea of unexplored, unlived potential and making sure there's none of that, and taking those, you know, tough decisions right now to pivot wherever needed, that is very important.
Lovely. Vineeta, thanks for inspiring us with what you do, who you are, and for making the time for this.
Thank you for writing this book, and it's definitely one of those that I'll recommend, at least to all my batchmates.
Got it. Thank you.